Hi guys, welcome to .NET X YouTube channel, and today we are going to start with React Native training. So guys, if you can hear us properly, please do confirm through the chat window. And if you are coming to the channel first time, I request you to please do subscribe to .NET X YouTube channel and get the notification about such training program in future. So guys, can you confirm through the chat window if you can hear us properly? Okay, Rohan, thank you for the confirmation. So today we having with us Mr. Avnish. He's working as a senior software developer and he's a React Native expert. So today the Avnish is going to tell you about how we can get started with the React Native and what is the job market we have in React Native and what are the benefit you will find out after learning the React Native. So I'm going to hand over the session to the Mr. Avnish. Yavnish, please.
Okay, thank you, Shailendra. Hi, myself Avnish, and as Shailendra told, I'm working in MNC as a senior software developer, and React Native expertise I have right now. But before that, I already worked with different technologies like .NET, React.js, Node.js, and JavaScript different frameworks. So I worked on those too. So, in today's session, we will be explaining what is React Native, how it is beneficial, what's the future prospects, and all about that things. So let's start with the basic things, and I'll tell you the agenda of this webinar. So the very first point will be like mobile apps development framework. So what are the different frameworks that we can use in mobile development? So I'll tell you about those. Next, I will tell you about what is React Native, what are the benefits, how it works, what are the different companies that they are using, how how and in what scenario we can use React Native. So that's all about the things that I'll discuss with you in this webinar. And who is using React Native? Different companies. I will tell you different popular apps that they use React Native. I will tell you about that as well. And this is the most important thing for us, that as a React Native developer, what are the job prospects, what are the salaries that a React Native developer draws. Okay, so that I will. And the last point, I will tell you this, how what needed to set up an environment. So I will tell you that. Okay, so let's start with first the framework. So in the beginning of the mobile app development, companies started with developing the applications in different operating system. Like you have Android, you have iOS, and you have also Windows Phone in the past, right? So they developed in their native applications in their native languages. So initially, if I talk about the iOS applications, they were developed in Objective C. Now what happened, that Objective C was little bit difficult to learn, and then it was not much uh, familiar with the developer. So what they did, they moved to the Swift. So nowadays Swift is going on. Swift is everywhere when you are talking about native iOS application development. And after that, in if we talk about the Android applications, so we were using Java. So we used Java in the past, but nowadays all the Android native developers are using Kotlin. Kotlin is something like JavaScript. So if you learn something about Kotlin or you search on Google for Kotlin language, you will see the syntax will be a little bit familiar, like similar to the JavaScript. So easy to learn. And in windows.net, so windows phone were used in the past, and today now windows phone is not is much used in this era. And Xamarin we use to develop these windows applications natively, right? Now the functions, the benefits. So native UX, different benefits we have while we developing native applications, because platform priority means we are developing the apps. So they have nice look and feel, nice UI, nice user friendly UI on the front end. Okay, so that's second thing, the highest performance, because the all the native applications are connecting to the native OS functions, features. So they are directly interacting with the native native features of the application. Sorry, of the operating system. So they will always give you the highest performance among all the frameworks, right? Multi-platform. So this is like a drawback, you can say. Every native apps has their own drawbacks, like uh, if you are going to develop a application for Android, so it will be always developed for Android, the native apps. If you are going for iOS, then you will develop only iOS specific native application. So that's little bit a drawback in the mobile app development in the native form. Unified code base, it means it's pretty simple. Like if you are developing an iOS application, so you will be writing iOS specific, not for Android specific. You cannot merge two codes into a single one and run your native app on Android as well as on the iOS. So that's a little drawback here on native apps. You have to build, if for iOS, then you have to write down iOS specific code. If you are building a Android application, then you have to write Android specific code. So that's called a unified code base among for different OS. Hardware and platform access, that's a pretty much good feature in native apps. Native apps are built upon the uh, OS specific things, right? So they have pretty good access to the OS specific features. You do not need to worry about anything else, that you need to add some plugin, you need to add some libraries in that, and then after you will get the access for the platform or the hardware of the mobile. They have direct access to their OS, their hardware specific things. So native apps provides you a super performance in that case, right? Second generation, what happened when the customer need was like to develop an application which can run on mobile as well as on the web browser. So what happened, it during the time hybrid applications were evolved. They were built upon the JavaScript, HTML, CSS like a web form. And hybrid application is just like, you can assume you are running a web browser inside a native app. So this is kind of hybrid apps. So different technologies like PhoneGap, Cordova, Ionic, these are the technologies were used to develop hybrid apps. Hybrid apps have their own benefits, pros and cons. So they have good UI, I can say. Performance is always good. Multi-platform is the biggest feature of hybrid apps, because in the first generation, when you talk about the platform specific code base, platform specific application, you always go for native. But now, as the era is changing, during the time we need everything on our mobile, so developer went to the different direction. What they did, they developed web plus mobile both into single code base. So this is something like the customers were happy to see these applications. But what happened during the time, hybrid apps uses WebView is little slower than the native native view, right? So now problem again appeared in the development, that performance is going a little bit slower. So now the third generation evolved. It was perfectly suitable for all the customer, all type of products that needs a cross platform feature, right? So in the cross platform applications, what happens, you have everything like you have in native application, but what it does, it uses your familiar language, that is JavaScript, right? And they develop it like a cross platform native application. It has something like access to the mobile phone operating system features by using some bridges. So they use some plugins, some you can say the libraries to access these feature, the native features of the mobile operating system. Different applications were developed on cross platform. It is very much popular nowadays. There are two reasons: time and cost. To develop a cross platform application, time is taken less than your native application, or it's a hybrid application always, right? Second thing, it uses a single code base for iOS, single code base for Android, single code base for web. You can use it as a single code and develop different OS specific applications. So that's why it is very much popular around the world to develop mobile applications. Now different things, different frameworks, different technology we have, like Xamarin .NET uses React Native. It was evolved from the React, and then after it evolved like React Native. Flutter, Google developed it. It's becoming popular. Native script, it is also a JavaScript based, and then there it is not much popular as React Native or Flutter right now. This cross platform applications have a lot of features that you need in your mobile application. It has nice UI look and feel. It has performance, means super performance I can say, but less than little bit the native one, because native applications has the direct access to hardware or the platform specific OS specific features. So a little bit slower, you can say 10% or 15%, not more than, but it is better than your hybrid, or you can say the native one, if you need an application with a single code base that can run on different operating system. Okay, so this is all about the frameworks that currently are in the market, but the most popular that is going on in the market is cross platform native application developed framework. Nowadays, the I can say the most popular framework for developing the mobile apps in cross-platform is React Native. Okay, so I'll tell you after in the next slides. Okay, so this is something that I already told you in last slide. Native Android development. It is the development languages like Java and Kotlin that you can develop a Android native application, right? Java is the language that we learned many years ago, and it is like working in used in Android native app development. But now, because everyone is having JavaScript, basic JavaScript knowledge and having experience in JavaScript, so what they did, they converted the syntaxes, or you can say the things that were written in Java, you can write down in Java, move to the Kotlin. Kotlin is something like syntax will be like similar to the JavaScript. So it will be easy to learn Kotlin rather than the Java. That's my personal experience. For developing the native application in Android, what we need simple Android SDK. Android SDK will provide you the development support toolkit for developing the native apps, right? And Android Studio is a IDE. IDE means like the development tool in which you will code for Android native apps. So that is the two things that you will need always. Apart from that, in Android Studio they provide you the emulator, you can say the simulator in which you can run your code, or you can attach your mobile phone to the your laptop, desktop, PC, wherever the Android Studio is installed, and you can debug, you can see your application live in your mobile, right? So this is something about the Android native development. Native iOS development. So in iOS, it is pretty I would say secured development, in the sense that they do not provide any kind of platform support for any other operating system. It means, it's pretty simply means like, if you have a Mac system, then you will be able to do development in iOS native apps. Nothing you cannot do in Linux, or you cannot do in Windows operating system. So you will need always in Mac system. Okay, now to develop an application in iOS, what you need to learn, you need to learn Objective C. This was used in the past to develop iOS native application, but now as the era is moving very fast in terms of technology development, they move to the Swift. Swift, you will see if the syntax on the on any application, you can see on the Google, you can download and you can see how the Swift language is, looks like very simple to JavaScript, but pretty much difficult rather than Java. But from Objective C perspective, it will bit easier to learn Swift. For developing iOS native application, you will need their IDE, that is Xcode. It's a software like Visual Studio, Visual Studio for your .NET development. So it's like IDE, Xcode, and iOS SDK to support your iOS native application features. Okay, so you will need these two things on your Mac system. Guys, if you have any questions, please write down in the chat window. I'll see uh, after this slide. Okay, so please write down your questions if you have anything. Now let's talk about the cross-platform development. So in the beginning of era, like when the need was to develop a cross-platform mobile application, so what happened, people made it like using HTML5 and CSS to look a web application looks like very similar to the mobile application. They tried to develop it in the same way, but what was happening, what was the issues that they faced, they were not having any uh, accessibility to any native feature, mobile native feature. Let's say you want to access audio of the mobile, you cannot do by using HTML5 and just CSS, cannot do. You need Bluetooth, you cannot do. So these type of native features, the need evolved during the time when cross-platform development was needed. So what happened? Developers researched on that, and then it was an hybrid development evolved. So hybrid mobile apps, what was that? It's just like you are having a code base, single code base, you are making a web application, but when you run it on your mobile, it will look like you are running a mobile application. How? They are using HTML5, CSS3, JavaScript, and another many plugins, many libraries. They are using WebView in Android, WK WebView in your iOS, just to replicate the native look and feel in the hybrid apps. But what happened? The performance little bit degraded rather than the your native apps. So to develop a hybrid mobile apps, the previous technologies were Apache Cordoba, PhoneGap, Ionic. These are the technologies that were used in the past, right? And now, when the cross-platform development increasingly time by time, then React Native, Flutter, Xamarin, different technologies came into the picture, and hybrid mobile development goes away a little bit. There were several features, several benefits using the React Native, Flutter, Xamarin, Native Script, these type of frameworks to develop the cross-platform apps. Okay, so I'll tell you why we use React Native more than these others. Okay, okay, so what is React Native? React Native is purely a JavaScript framework, and it is, you can say, empowered by React.js. So who is very much familiar with JavaScript and React.js, he can learn React Native very easily, not a typical one. But if you are knowing only the JavaScript, a little bit hard work you need to do, but you will be expertise in your React Native, right? So during the time, I'll tell you that how React Native was evolved. So in the beginning of like 2010, you can say, this was the era when web applications was going to be presented on the mobile apps. There was a need from the different customers that they want their web application to be run on mobile apps. So Facebook thought about that why don't we use our Facebook web application on mobile, and why don't we give this web view of the Facebook on the mobile looks like a native app. So what they did, they used HTML5, CSS, and JavaScript, jQuery, everything to mold their web application into the mobile. But after around 1 or 2 years of hard work, smart work, they failed. So in 2012, Mark Zuckerberg admitted that he has committed a big mistake by converting their web application into the mobile application, and they failed. But suddenly what happened, research was going on that how can they develop their web application into the mobile, how they can convert it without having more expertise in different technologies like I can say like uh, Kotlin or Swift. So they don't want to hire more people, they don't want to use more resources, and they don't want to maintain two different bases for two different operating systems. So one of the developer, Jordan Walk, he developed a JavaScript based language, React.js, in the beginning of 2013, and then they developed React Native. They built this framework based on pure JavaScript. They were able to connect to the native feature of the mobile phones through the JavaScript, through the React Native. So they got some success, but they were not sure, they were not confident much, like will this be a future development framework for mobile apps that will serve a cross platform feature for all types of applications. So they researched on that, they tested it, they tried again and again, and then after 2015 they announced that they have a language, React Native, that can be used to develop a cross platform application in in the world. Okay, so that's why React Native is said to be the part of React.js, but you can say React.js empowers React Native. It provides the features and the things that required in React Native. So this is purely a JavaScript framework. Single code for multiple platforms, as I already told you, right? So you don't need to worry about OS specific codes. What you need to build a single code base, single thing for iOS, for Android, for Windows, or even for web application. So you can maintain a single code base. You will need few resources to develop it. JavaScript expertise is required, so few resources and your work will be done. So in that case, React Native is useful where you have a limitation of resources, number of resources, you have a limitation of budget you can use there, right? And you don't require a very much intensive use of native features in your application. Okay, so that's what about the React Native. Already told this point as well, like who anyone who knows React can target web, iOS, Android, Windows development. So it is much preferred you should learn React.js and then after React Native, but it is not mandatory always. If you are familiar with JavaScript, perfect, no worries, you will learn React Native easily, don't worry about that. But if you are learning you already learned React.js, it is preferable. Okay, so big companies, I don't think that I would tell you the names of these companies. They already using the React Native in their application. Skype, Microsoft, Airbnb, Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, we use Tesla. So there are lots of companies that using React Native nowadays. So you can say it's a very popular framework to develop a cross-platform application nowadays. And if I see the future of React Native, it is going to be increased and increased and increased. It is never going to be ending somewhere. Okay, so your future is fully secured if you are learning React Native. Now, this is the good point that is very much needed to tell, that what is the job prospect and the salary of a React Native developer in the world, or even I can say in India as well, because we belong to India. Mm, So we'll tell you about that as well. So currently, React Native is in the market share, you can see 42%. So if you want to see like the share of the React Native is the highest one nowadays, right? Now second thing, Flutter, that is still growing, and Google is developing it a little bit fast. So in future it will be always having a good feature. Cordova, Ionic, Xamarin, they have a now like a just an average share of the market. So currently if you see, what I'm trying to say is React Native has the highest market share in terms of jobs, in terms of salary, in terms of everything, right? So I am very much happy if you learn React Native very soon. So your jobs and salaries are going to be like higher and higher day by day. If I talk about the salary in USD dollar, if you are having an average experience, so you will have a salary of 1,10,788 million dollar per year. So it is around 9,200 dollar per month in US or in Europe as well. If I talk about in India, it goes around 8 lakhs to 16 lakhs per year for a React Native developer. So it is a good salary. It's a good salary in around the world for a React Native developer. And as your experience goes up, your salary is growing very fast. Okay, so React Native's environment, how can I set up? So first of all, you will need Node.js. Node.js is primarily requirement for any, I can say, JavaScript framework, because everything is running just above this label, Node.js. So you can download and install it on your system, nodejs.org, right? Now, if I talk about React Native CLIs, so there are two things. One is Expo CLI, right? And second one is React Native CLI. So what are those things? CLI is something like to support your development, right? Let's say I need some prerequisite requirements to develop a project, like let's say package.json, like I need git ignore, I need configuration that should be in your project already when you init your project. So everything should be always already configured for you. You just need to code down and that's it. So there are two things what you can do. You can use Expo CLI, you can use React Native for React Native development. But as per my experience in the React Native development, I would say if you are a fresher or you are not much experience in React Native development, then go for React Native CLI, right? But if you are proficient, you are expertise, or you have less time to develop React Native application, then go for Expo CLI. Expo CLI will just reduce your efforts to configure your application for React Native runnable environment. Okay, it will just have single command and your application will run. But in React Native CLI, you will have to go through different configuration parameters that you need to do. So that is required in React Native CLI. In React Native CLI, what you will be learning, you will be learning the challenges, errors, warnings, and everything. In Expo CLI, it will be less because it already configured everything for you. You just need to code and that's it. You don't need to worry about the configuration. But if you are trying to learn React Native from scratch, then my experience says you go for React Native CLI so that you can learn everything step by step, step by step. Okay, so that's your choice. If you want to go for Expo, if you want to go for React Native, that's your choice. Now, what next? I need supporting environment for Android, iOS, right? Let's say I'm using Linux or Windows. So in that case, what I need for Android development, I need only Android SDK. That's it. I don't need anything, right? But for iOS, again, I'm saying the same thing. I need a Mac system, only Mac system. Okay, so you will need these two installed on your environment to develop React Native application. Now, the next thing, the last thing that you require in development, IDE, where you will write down your code, where you will see the configurations things, where you will see the project structure. That is only one you can use, Visual Studio Code. That can work in Windows, Linux, even your Mac system. But who are the iOS specific users? They prefer to use Xcode. The reason behind this is to create production level build using Xcode is pretty easy, right? And for Android, I would say to install Android Studio so that you can prepare the build easily for Android specific OS environment. Okay, so that's my just experience in different platforms with development. Visual Studio Code is a single IDE that can be used on Linux, Windows, and iOS. No worries. You have to no worries about your IDE. Just code in Visual Studio Code and that's it. Okay. So that's how the development environment for React Native is needed. So you can note down or we'll share the slides. Okay, so the last thing that I will show you the a small demo that I developed in React Native. It's pretty easy to develop. I'll tell you simple things, simple steps to do it. Okay, so this is pretty simple, a simple calculator that I created, and what I just used simple commands for from React Native CLI. Okay, I used very simple command React Native init and the project name whatever you can use, and it created all these structure for me. What I will need to add, just source is something that I created myself, and where I put my business logic, my application logic, right? The front end logic that I need, the different components that I need within the application. So I need these uh, to be included in the project architecture just to support the application. Okay, so now there are different things, different files you can see here, but the main files that we need to develop the React Native application where we start our coding is app.js. Pretty simple, where I have write down different components, inclusion, different components for providing the UI things, right? Now, very pretty simple command. I run it, and what it will do, it will bundle all the JavaScript code which I wrote into a single file, and it will bundle into this single file, and then after it will be served as a mobile application. So this is the Metro tool that is used to bundle the application code into a single unit. So it is required in React Native to create the bundle, and everything whatever is you can say logging into the mobile application will be written here, everything in this screen. So this is pretty simple calculator, and whatever you want to perform you can do it. Okay, so this was just to demo you, like to understand how the React Native application looks like on mobile. So if you have any Android mobile, if you open your calculator it will be look like this. So it doesn't look like that we are using a web view or web application within the mobile. It's purely native application like. So you can develop your application during the time when you will learn React Native, and you will be very easily learning these things in React Native development. So I think that's all. This is the all things, and now I'll take care of your questions that you have asked. Okay, so Siddharth, he's asked that how did you get the access to the emulator? Okay, so there are two things. If you install Android SDK, so emulator will be installed there already, right? And the Metro tool will be bundling your application code and serving it to the React Native thing, right? And then after it will call the emulator, and it will uh, serve the bundled code into the emulator. So you can install emulator separately as well. You can it will be installed through the Android SDK as well. And if you have an Android Studio, then it will be pretty easy to install different type of emulator on your systems. Seetal, next question is, do I have to install all dependencies every time I create a new project? Is there a faster way to have access to default dependencies? No, React Native React Native provides you a simple command, CLI command, that will always install your dependency by their own. If you need to add some more libraries on that, then you have to run the command every time. So please explain native with some real uses in small components which can be used close platform. I have an Android studio installed on my device. What would be the easiest way to okay. Abhijit, your question is not clear to me. Please write down in detail, or you can email me. I'll share my email after this call, and then you can send me your question in detail. I'll answer you on that. Naveen, I have an Android Studio installed in my device. So what would be the easiest way to create the new app and run it? Okay, so Naveen, if you are talking about React Native, so React Native CLI will always create a Android folder for you very easily, right? And what you need to do, you just need to open that Android folder in your Android Studio and run your emulator. That's it. It will always run your application in emulator or your on your phone. Styling, so we have a perfect view on. Abhijit, we have a mobile first approach technology used in web development. It's based on media queries styling, so we can have perfect view on mobile. Also, how can we use React in JS to achieve this? No, if you are talking about mobile first approach technology in web development, then React Native provides you the development approach, like to develop iOS application, Android, and web as well. But they will segregate in the HTML view. You can say the UI view, you have to write down different for web view and different for iOS or Android you want, like that. Then after you will be able to use React in. Can I clone live?
I think Pushpalata asking about like what are the basic steps to run same code on iOS. So I think the Pushpalata, whatever the thing you set up for Android, make sure same way you set up the iOS SDK as well on your Mac.
Yes, they will need to set up iOS SDK, and then they can run like uh, npm run iOS in Visual Studio Code. Simple. But if
Say,
they are
mhm.
talking about to create builds for their mobile, then they will need always the Xcode for that. They cannot do standalone using Visual Studio Code. It will be pretty hard to do it, and iOS doesn't allow for that.
So make sure you have installed the Xcode as well on the Mac machine
Hmm.
so that you can able to build for your iOS, for your iPhone,
Right.
for your React Native application. Chandrasekhar, the VS in the VS code you cannot see the emulator.
No.
Emulator you have to start separately. With the help of VS code, you can edit your code and you can use React Native CLI or Expo CLI to build your React Native application. And finally, uh, you can give a command to open your emulator. But make sure before that you have configured the Android SDK on your Windows machine. If you are using Windows, if you are using the Mac, use the Mac as well. And in this is the way we can connect uh, our VS code running code with your emulator on Android or your simulator in your iOS. So any other queries, guys? Do you have? And if you're coming to the channel first time, I request you to please do subscribe to .NET YouTube channel so that the information about such webinar you will get it. You will get notified automatically. I hope you have really enjoyed this session. You have been now understanding how can build your next cross-platform mobile application for Android and iOS using the React Native. And the benefit of the React Native is you have to know only JavaScript and the React.js. Using that understanding, you can build it. So thank you, Avanish, for your time and for sharing your experience with us. So I hope the people liked it and they will make a plan to build their mobile application with the help of React Native.
Thank you, Shailendra, and thank you everyone. Just to hear the things that I have shared is my experience that I am getting from my day-to-day work. So I shared with you. If you have any open questions, please send it to me, or you can visit to .nettricks.com, and there is also an email in the contact us, and you can send your queries there, and 100% you will get your answer ready.
Is somebody having the query? I'm sharing the email in the chat with the simple support at the rate.netx.com and just write to us. We would be happy to help you regarding your any query. Okay, thank you, Neha, for sharing your learning experience with us. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Abnish. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye bye. Bye everyone.